Risk of Rain 2 just had a brand new update. It added a new character, a secret new character, new items, and new abilities for all the survivors. The captain received this, the OGM-72 Diablo Strike, a giant kinetic bombardment device that deals 40,000% damage. In other words, the captain has a nuke. The downside is that it takes 20 whole seconds for the ability to fall to the ground, which is easily enough time for enemies to walk out of the range. Like, I wanted to fill this entire clip with some sort of voiceover of me talking, but it just keeps going. It just keeps going and it never ends because the damage takes so long to fall down. It just takes forever. Look at how long This ability, as far as I can tell, is extremely bad. Significantly worse than the default utility that the captain can use, by far. In my opinion, it's one of, if not the worst ability in the entire game. However, it's also the coolest ability in the entire game. The team at Htwo Games probably knew it wouldn't be very effective, because 20 seconds may as well be 20 years in this game. Landing this ability is far too inconsistent for it to be better than the default version. But that doesn't actually matter at all, because Htwo knows that their designs should prioritise fun over all else. Because that's what games are for, right? This is something that I think Htwo Games is extremely good at, especially with their character and ability designs. Because there will always be a strongest ability in the slot, and a weakest ability in the slot, but they still manage to make the weaker ability fun to use in its own way for just about every single character. Acrid even has an entirely different playstyle with a bunch of melee-focused abilities to replace his default ones, so he goes from a ranged damage over time character to a melee bruiser drain tank character. The melee version of the build is objectively worse than the ranged one, but it doesn't matter because it's still fun to play in its own right. Single-player games and co-op games can get away with this sort of thing in a way that a multiplayer game can't do. Single-player games can have weaker characters and weaker abilities without any real issues, because as long as the weak characters are fun to play, people will play them. Multiplayer games, though, they don't have this luxury. It doesn't matter how fun a character is, if it's too weak to be competitively viable, no one's gonna touch it. This concept of prioritizing fun can be extrapolated into basically every genre of game. The place that I have observed it to be a problem the most often is in platformer games. Games like I Wanna Be the Guy are the perfect example. It seems to me that the devs asked themselves, how do I make this as difficult and frustrating as possible, without really considering if what they were creating was particularly fun. I'm sure I'll get a bunch of people telling me that I'm just mad because bad, but these sorts of games, that I can only describe as screw you games, really aren't my sort of thing. Making a game frustrating just for the sake of it isn't as fun as making a game frustrating because of a well-earned difficulty level. Getting creative with designs can often be well worth the increase in difficulty, or the decrease in effectiveness of the character. Like in The Binding of Isaac's newest update, Repentance, which recently released on Steam. It added some really cool new content. This is quite a major spoiler, so if you don't want spoilers, then go run and hide in a corner for a little while. They added completely reworked hardcore versions of all of the characters in the game, referred to as the B-side characters. The devs got super creative with all of these characters. For example, the B-side Isaac has double the options from item pedestals. They flicker back and forth between two options, and he can grab whichever he wants. But the catch to this is that you can only hold up to 8 passive items at a time. When he tries to pick up a 9th, the oldest item in the list will drop onto the ground. You can control which one you drop, but this limitation is super difficult and interesting to play around. Or the B-side version of Kane. He has a special item that lets him bag up consumables and eventually turn them into items. The catch here being that he can't collect items normally. Picking up an item pedestal turns the item into a big pile of consumables. Or take a look at the B-side Lilith. The B-side Lilith has... Or the B-side Samson, who periodically loses his ranged attacks and turns into a melee character. Just about all of these characters are significantly harder to play than their default counterparts, but they're also super unique and fun to play in their own right despite this. The massive increase in difficulty is fine, so long as the character is a lot more fun as a result, whereas making it difficult just for the sake of it being difficult is not so fun. Fun should be a top priority for every game, and we've all seen far too many games where difficulty for difficulty's sake stands in the way, or even, dare I say it, predatory monetization tactics. These things can massively get in the way of what could potentially be a really, really great game. Sometimes things don't need to be balanced. Sometimes things don't need to be fair. None of that matters as long as the game is fun. Thanks for watching.